After I died, my 5-year-old daughter called the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle.
Daddy?
It's Nai. On the other end of the line, he sneered. What new trick is this? My daughter, not understanding, happily said, Yes, Nai's last name is Pan. There was silence on the phone. He didn't know that I was already dead. My daughter was watching my ghost help her lie, but I could no longer pick up the phone. Nai replied earnestly word for word, as I taught her. Mom went to someone else's house. Mom said she can't take me, so I should find Daddy. Mom said she raised your child for 5 years. Now it's your turn. Fu Yuanzhou would probably believe this kind of story. After all, I had abandoned him in the same way back then. Sure enough, a cold laugh came from the phone.
She really hasn't changed.
But what makes her think I'll come? Nai stammered. Mom said we can do a paternity test to prove you're my dad. Dad, I don't want to go to an orphanage. The last sentence was said with a pitiful tone. After a long silence, Fu Yuanzhou uttered 2 words. Address. Nai gave the address, and the call ended. It's about an hour's flight from Beijing, so Fu Yuanzhou should arrive soon. I breathed a sigh of relief. Nana blinked her eyes and looked at me in confusion, asking, Why did Mommy lie to Daddy? Isn't Mommy dead? I floated silently in midair for a moment without answering. Actually, rather than deceiving Fu Yuanzhou, it was more for Nana's sake. Nana has been able to see ghosts since she was little. In her eyes, death is just another way of living on. For example, I'm still by her side now, just in a different form. So she didn't make a fuss or feel sad. She even thought it was fun having a ghost mommy. But that could make others see her as a freak. I didn't know if Fu Yuanzhou could accept such a child, and I didn't dare take that risk. Mommy wants to play a game with Daddy to see how long it takes him to find out Mommy is still here. I bent down and pretended to be mysterious. So you can't say that Mommy is dead, and you can't say you can see Mommy, understand? Nana nodded vigorously and covered her mouth. I definitely won't say it. My mouth is very small. Good girl. I smiled and gently pretended to pat her head. Later, Nai ate some bread and fell asleep. Perhaps due to her unique constitution, she had always been more drowsy than other children her age. I sat by the bed watching her, powerless as the corner of her blanket lay slightly open, until the door was knocked in the dead of silence. A deep, cold male voice came. Hello, Fu Yuanzhou. I drifted to the door, passed through it, and almost passed through Fu Yuanzhou's body, so I quickly stepped back 2 paces. Before me, Fu Yuanzhou touched the tip of his nose, his brow slightly furrowed. I never imagined our reunion after 6 years would be like this. Face to face, I could clearly see the fine lines nurtured by time on his face, while my existence to him was merely a faint, barely perceptible breeze. Fu Yuanzhou raised his hand to knock again, his long, distinct fingers passing through my body. Is anyone there? Nai was awakened by the knocking and shuffled over in her slippers, still half asleep. She opened the door in confusion and looked up at Fu Yuanzhou. Are you Daddy? Fu Yuanzhou didn't speak, just stared at her with a deep gaze. I knew what he was thinking. So similar. Nai looks just like him. One could tell at a glance whose child she is. After a moment, Fu Yuanzhou finally tore his gaze away from Nai and began to survey the entire room. She brought you to live in a place like this, he said with a light scoff as he strode inside. I floated beside him, a bit miffed, and retorted, It's not like you've never lived in a small house before. A 50-square-meter apartment is pretty decent, okay? Fu Yuanzhou obviously couldn't hear me. He casually glanced around and finally stopped to ask Nai, Where's your mom? Really not here? 6 years later, Fu Yuanzhou exuded an oppressive aura. He lowered his eyelids, half glaring as he silently waited for an answer. Intimidated, Nai quietly stepped back a few paces and hid behind me, though the hiding was pointless. After a brief standoff, Fu Yuanzhou helplessly crouched down to look Nai in the eye, his tone softening slightly. Do you know your mom's phone number? Nai clutched the hem of her dress tightly, let out a quiet then fluently recited my number in a soft voice. Fu Yuanzhou took out his phone. The call log screen was a glaring red. It turned out he had already called me many times. Fu Yuanzhou took his phone and went to the balcony to make a call. The number hasn't changed. Find someone to check the address. The signs of life at home are relatively fresh. They probably haven't been gone long. one hand resting casually on the railing. He was meticulously serious. What keen observation, I murmured as I drifted over to him, gazing into the distance where the lights were fading and traffic was flowing like a river. Then I spoke softly, but you won't find me before the police do, Fu Yuanzhou. Fu Yuanzhou was about to take Nai away. Before leaving, I directed Nai to pack a few things simply. Bring your pajamas and your favorite little dog plushie. The blue pill box in the second drawer of the TV cabinet. You take it when you have allergies, remember? Bring the milk cereal too, in case you're not used to the food. I rambled on, saying so much. But Nai kept going back and forth, grabbing lots of my photos and stuffing them into the suitcase. Suddenly, I fell silent. After a moment of speechlessness, I stopped Nai. Just take one photo of you and me together. No need for so many. She hugged my sketchbook, eyes wide open.
Why?
Dad won't like it. Fu Yuanzhou wouldn't want to see photos of me in the house. Who are you talking to? A sudden voice made me look up and see Fu Yuanzhou standing at the bedroom door. Nana was startled, and the album in her arms fell to the floor with a thud. The album fell open to a page showing photos of me and Fu Yuanzhou, smiling, goofing off, being intimate. The air suddenly became eerily quiet. Fu Yuanzhou's eyes were fixed on those photos, and finally, he let out a soft laugh. Pan Yu, are you crazy? He scolded me, but unfortunately, I couldn't scold him back. Nana cautiously pointed at the album and asked, Dad, can I take this?
No.
Fu Yuanzhou firmly dropped those two words. It made me dazedly recall how he was like that when I first proposed breaking up, red-eyed, domineeringly pulling me into his arms, saying, No. If I don't say it's over, you can never leave me. But later, I personally destroyed his trust. In the hotel's executive suite, I opened the door for Fu Yuanzhou wrapped in a bathrobe, the red marks on my neck conspicuous and vivid. Did you sleep with him? Fu Yuanzhou's voice trembled. I remained silent. The situation escalated greatly. Fu Yuanzhou beat someone up and ended up in the police station. His friend came to pick him up, looking impatient, and told me, You should explain things properly to a Zhou and admit your mistake. This can be smoothed over. You know he cares about you a lot. My tone was flat, without much fluctuation. Sorry, I'm busy. My boyfriend got hurt, and I need to take care of him. He dropped the pretense too, flaring up immediately. Fuck, Pan Yu, you're just a country girl. Without a Zhou, you'd have nothing. Don't be so ungrateful. His curses stopped abruptly. Fu Yuanzhou stepped in front of him. Enough, Pan Yu. Blood from his forehead streamed into his eyes, mingling with tears. Don't let me see you again. He hated me to the core. The plane landed in Jing City at 11:30 p.m. The car arrived at the villa downstairs at midnight. I used to come to this villa often. I had planted that crabapple tree in the yard with Fu Yuanzhou. Now the blooming season had just passed, the petals buried in the mud. Such a pity. I still never got to see it in full, brilliant bloom. Fu Yuanzhou got out of the car. Nai was sleeping soundly on his shoulder. The servants fell silent, waiting until Fu Yuanzhou carried Nai into the second-floor guest room, settled her down, closed the door, and stepped out. A servant softly asked, Mr. Fu, who is this? My daughter. Fu Yuanzhou replied curtly, then walked onto the balcony, ignoring the bewildered looks exchanged among the servants behind him. He pulled out a cigarette from somewhere and lightly held it between his lips, a pinpoint of red soon glowing in the night. I remembered he didn't used to smoke. Leaning against the railing, Fu Yuanzhou gazed down at the crabapple tree in the yard, his eyes darker than the night itself. Let the child call me, then hide yourself away. Pan Yu, is this fun for you? I drifted over to him, teasing. I wouldn't want it either, or else you could vent your anger by beating my corpse. Uffed, a short laugh suddenly came from beside me. I turned to see a female ghost in a floral dress floating in midair. Even though I was a ghost myself, I still stumbled back in fright at the sight. She sidled up to me familiarly.
Just died. Huh?
Is he your man? I shook my head. No, we haven't seen each other in 6 years. Then I'm going for it.
What?
Sleep with him. I'm heading down soon. I have to get a top-tier one before I go. She grew more agitated as she spoke. I've been watching him for days now. There's never been a shortage of women around him. Since he's not the type to stay faithful, I don't have to feel guilty anymore. I stared blankly at Fu Yuanzhou. His face was half hidden in the smoke, but from what I could see, he was indeed stunningly handsome. Can I swap him for someone else? I asked. The female ghost looked at me and smiled. Still hung up on old feelings? I opened my mouth to say something, but then I heard a faint, tearful cry from behind me. Mommy, where are you? I immediately wanted to go over. Beside me, Fu Yuanzhou quickly stubbed out his cigarette, brushed the ash off his clothes, and hurried inside. I stopped myself. I'd have to leave eventually anyway. It's better for Nai Nai to get used to it sooner. So, I quietly hid around the corner to watch. Nai Nai stood helplessly in the hallway, clutching her plush puppy doll, her face streaked with tears. Mommy, where are you? Waking up in a strange room without me by her side, she must have been terrified. A pang of pain rose in my chest. I held myself back with all my might to stop from stepping forward. Fu Yuanzhou crouched in front of Nai Nai, frantically wiping the tears off her face. Don't cry, Daddy's here. Nai Nai threw herself into his arms, still repeating, Mommy, I want Mommy. Fu Yuanzhou lifted Nai Nai up and gently patted her back. Didn't Mommy leave a long time ago? Or tell Daddy where Mommy went, and I'll go find her for you. Nai Nai sobbed intermittently. Mommy didn't leave. Mommy was just at home a moment ago. Fu Yuanzhou frowned slightly. At home? Mommy said she'd come with me. Nai Nai buried her face, smearing tears and snot all over Fu Yuanzhou's black shirt. Fu Yuanzhou's frown deepened, and his expression darkened. After a moment, as if something clicked, he curled his lips in a mocking smirk. Ha, playing me? Pan you, don't let me catch you. He really doesn't know you're dead. The floral dress female ghost suddenly popped up beside me. I nodded, and a flicker of light passed through her eyes. Then, I'd really love to see his face when he finds out you're dead. It's bound to be quite a show. I smiled and shook my head. You said he's always got women around. Why would he care about an ex like me? The female ghost spoke with an air of expertise. Men, they separate body and love pretty easily. But I think he's still hung up on you. I didn't say anything more. I just watched Fu Yuanzhou's back in silence. Hung up on me? Fu Yuanzhou said himself that I don't have that right. 06 Fu Yuanzhou had no experience with kids. In the end, the housemaid had to come help calm the child down and take him for a bath. Fu Yuanzhou let out a sigh of relief and went back to the terrace to light a cigarette. The usually refined man now had messy hair, his wrinkled shirt soaked in several places. I couldn't help but laugh. Guess it doesn't matter who you are, kids are the same with everyone. As soon as I said that, his phone rang. Instinctively, I reached for my pocket. But halfway through, I realized, I'm dead. Why would I answer a call? It was a call for Fu Yuanzhou. He glanced at the screen and answered lazily. Not knowing what the other side said, Fu Yuanzhou smiled coldly. I've only been back for less than an hour, and you're already so well informed. I simply moved closer. The man's voice on the phone sounded somewhat familiar. About 5 years old. Is that Panyu's child? Have you done a paternity test? Where is she? It was Fu Yuanzhou's father, Fu Cheng. I turned to look at Fu Yuanzhou. He exhaled smoke, the white mist drifting like restless ghosts. Seeing no reply, the voice on the phone continued. If it's your child, it must stay. The Fu family's seed cannot be left to wander outside. I saw Fu Yuanzhou silently curl his lips in a mocking smile. The man paused, his voice cold and hard. But her mother is unnecessary. Don't forget how she treated you back then. Fu Yuanzhou stubbed out his cigarette before speaking expressionlessly. I'll only take revenge on her. The worse, the better. He hung up after saying that. I carefully looked at this face I had dreamed of day and night for 6 years. After a long time, I finally smiled until tears came. I have died a miserable death. Fu Yuanzhou, can you stop hating me? He still did not answer. The phone rang again. This time, Fu Yuanzhou answered quickly. How is it? Looks like the person I sent to investigate me has results. The person on the other end of the line stammered. Mr. Fu, the person wasn't found, but… Fu Yuanzhou looked impatient.
Speak.
A loud intake of breath came through the phone. I drove past a park cordoned off with police tape. I took a look and saw a corpse by the lake, looking exactly like Miss Pan. The following words were cut off. Fu Yuanzhou's phone suddenly fell to the ground with a crisp sound. 07 I have fantasized more than once about Fu Yuanzhou's reaction upon learning of my death. Perhaps he would just be slightly surprised and let out a sigh of, I see. After all, in his eyes, I was the betrayer of this relationship. Moreover, after 6 years, we had long become strangers. But I still couldn't help thinking overreachingly, would he maybe feel just a tiny bit of sadness? After all, we used to be so close. But it seems I was wrong about all of it. After a moment of reasonable surprise, Fu Yuanzhou picked up his phone. He smiled expressionlessly. It's normal that you've never seen her admit her mistake. I carefully matched the photo, Mr. Fu. I'm coming over now. Fu Yuanzhou cut him off coldly and hung up. I quietly studied his face, trying to find something on it, but found nothing. Fu Yuanzhou returned to his room. As soon as he pushed open the door, Nai excitedly shook a doll at him. Daddy, look. I gave the dog a new look. I finally saw a crack in Fu Yuanzhou's face. He hesitated, then finally dropped a line. Something came up. Wait for me at home. Then he hurried away. I hesitated and didn't follow. Aren't you going to follow and see him cry his heart out? The ghost in the floral dress appeared again, without warning. I forced a helpless smile. Too far. It takes energy. I have a way to flash us over there. I twitched the corner of my mouth. I'm mainly worried about leaving Nai here alone. I'll help you find some ghost friends with deep cultivation to protect her. I was momentarily speechless. She sat cross-legged, floating in the air, chin propped on her hand, looking at me with interest. Were you really afraid of, little sister? Yeah, what am I afraid of? Just afraid of seeing Fu Yuanzhou really not caring at all about my death. Afraid to see him indifferent, unwilling even to collect my body. The female ghost asked again, I'm really curious about what happened between you two. Did you dig up his ancestral grave? Is he the son of your father's murder? 08 No, none of that. We just simply loved each other, and then parted. Before 17, Fu Yuanzhou wasn't named Fu. He went by his mother's surname, Gu Yuanzhou. Gu Yuanzhou moved to the small town with Aunt Gu at age 6. On the first day, he stomped the princess castle I built on the beach into a mess. I asked him to apologize. He stared at my castle ruins with wide, incredulous eyes. A castle? I thought it was just a dirt pile. How could there be such an ugly castle? I immediately scooped up a handful of sand and threw it at him in anger. The battle was about to begin. Sand flew back and forth, turning the sky yellow. When Aunt Gu and my dad arrived, I was riding on Gu Yuanzhou's back, shoving sand down his pants. My dad scolded me without a second thought. But Aunt Gu bent down and gently brushed the sand off my face. Such a pretty little face, all dirty now. She had long, straight black hair, a white cardigan, a sleeveless dress, and stylish high heels. And when she smiled, 2 beautiful dimples appeared. Why did someone so gentle have to be Gu Yuanzhou's mom? That made me dislike Gu Yuanzhou even more. If he climbed a tree, I'd shake the trunk. If he went swimming, I'd cut holes in his shorts. He never backed down either. He'd pour bitter gourd juice into my sugar water and hide pebbles in my backpack. And so our feuds went on into our teenage years. Gu Yuanzhou inherited Aunt Gu's good genes, growing more handsome as he became the school heartthrob. He received a lot of love letters, but only the ones I passed on to him would he open and read one by one. After reading them, Gu Yuanzhou took out a love letter from his own pocket. Don't be too jealous. I wrote one for you too. Take a look. This was provocation and humiliation. So without even glancing at it, I threw that love letter into the trash bin. But as I turned to leave, Gu Yuanzhou grabbed my wrist. He let out a rather helpless sigh. Haven't you always wanted my mom to be your mom? I have a way. Hearing this, I actually became interested. I was adopted by my father as a child and never had a mother. And Aunt Gu was the only one who made me feel maternal love. So I asked, what way? Register under the household, he said, staring at me intently. After we get married, you'll have the right to call her mom. A sudden, unreadable emotion filled Gu Yuanzhou's beautiful peach blossom eyes. It was only then that I realized belatedly. That love letter had been a real love letter. 09 But before I could respond to Gu Yuanzhou's confession, his biological father Fu Cheng showed up at the door. Fu Cheng, nearly 50, only then discovered that neither of his 2 children were his own. So he remembered Gu Yuanzhou, his illegitimate son. Gu Yuanzhou was taken to the wealthy Fu family. Back then, young and naive. I thought Gu Yuanzhou had struck it rich and his future was bright, and I would also benefit from his rise. Until that day when Aunt Gu suddenly collapsed at home. Dad, and I rushed her to the hospital, only to learn she was already in the late stages of cancer. Everything was so unexpected. By the hospital bed, Aunt Gu still gently wiped the tears from my face. Suyu, don't cry. Your pretty face will get all smudged. My throat tightened, and I couldn't utter a single word. How could someone so wonderful have to die? Aunt Gu patted my head. Can you keep Xiaozhou company for me? With you around, he'll be happy. I agreed, but even so, Gu Yuanzhou wasn't happy. He absolutely hated Fu Cheng. Hated Fu Cheng for ruining Aunt Gu, making her the target of public scorn, forcing her to leave her hometown and struggle to raise him alone. Hated Fu Cheng for sending him abroad, so he missed seeing Aunt Gu one last time. He became rebellious and defiant, desperately trying to make Fu Cheng's wishes fail. He refused to take part in the Fu family's inheritance struggle, determined to start from scratch and destroy Fu Cheng. But in the early days of the company, my family ran into trouble. My dad had been honest his whole life, but suddenly at an awkward age, he chose to start a business. All the family savings were lost, and we owed millions in debt. Fu Cheng set a condition. As long as Gu Yuanzhou agreed to take over the Fu family, he would help pay off all the debts. Gu Yuanzhou didn't agree. I suggested breaking up, but Gu Yuanzhou didn't agree either. I'm not that useless. He, like his mother, gently and softly kissed away the tears on my face. Suyu, let's not give up, okay? I didn't say yes or no. It was only on the day he sold off the company's assets and came to me with the money that I chose to meet him in a hotel room. Even now, I still carry regrets. I regret those 6 empty years. I regret that before I died, we never had a proper reunion. Our last impression of each other was that line outside the police station. This is where it ends. But no matter how many regrets I have, when death comes, grudges fade. Everything must end here. So I still didn't go to that park, didn't go see Fu Yuanzhou's reaction. The next morning, Fu Yuanzhou arrived back at the villa, travel-worn. There were red rings under his eyes and dark circles from lack of sleep. He came with 2 police officers. They conducted a routine interview with Nai. When was the last time you saw your mother? Nai held her plush puppy tight and answered obediently. Yesterday morning, Mom took me to kindergarten. No one picked you up from school. How did you get home? My teacher took me home. The officer raised an eyebrow. Why did you call your father? Nai instinctively squeezed the little dog doll's ear. I wanted to see Daddy. I've never met Daddy. This was what I taught her before Fu Yuanzhou and the police arrived. Even if they asked why she said, Mom doesn't want me on the phone, she could explain it as the child missing her father so much that she lied to gain sympathy. But strangely, they didn't press further. As if Fu Yuanzhou hadn't told them everything from the call. I stared blankly at Fu Yuanzhou standing to the side. His face remained expressionless the whole time. Only a suppressed grayish-white lurked in his eyes, like the calm before a storm. The interrogation ended, and the police left. Nai looked at Fu Yuanzhou and tilted her head in confusion. Daddy's face is so pale. Fu Yuanzhou was startled. He let Nai tug at his shirt and pull him down a little. Then her tiny forehead pressed against his. Before, whenever Nai felt unwell, I would use this method to check if she had a fever. She seems to have remembered. After a moment, Nai moved her forehead away and tugged at her own little braid in frustration. It's not hot. She looked at me as if seeking help. Mom, come and see Dad. I shook my head and was about to speak. But Fu Yuanzhou suddenly turned his head and looked in my direction.
Then he walked toward me step by step.
11 I was a bit nervous. I grabbed the arm of the female ghost in the floral dress beside me. He shouldn't be able to see me, right? The female ghost in the floral dress was called Su Yun, which I had asked about last night. Su Yun said nonchalantly, Do you really think everyone has yin-yang eyes? Your daughter is 1 in 100,000. Don't worry, at most he can only feel that something is here. That's actually quite scary. I thought to myself. Fu Yuanzhou got closer and closer until he was just a hair's breadth away from me. He suddenly stopped and reached out, his fingertips touching through my body. Then he grasped at empty air. I must be going crazy. He pulled at the corner of his mouth in a mocking, wistful smile. His slightly bent back slowly straightened again. Fu Yuanzhou turned and walked back to Nai Nai. I breathed a sigh of relief, but then felt a trace of disappointment. Maybe it would have been nice to see him one more time. Dad's not feeling unwell. Fu Yuanzhou crouched down, gently tidying Nai Nai's braids. Has Mom been feeling unwell lately? Has she been unhappy? Has she told you to take care of yourself? I knew what he was asking. The police had already asked the same questions. They suspected I had killed myself. After all, it was too convenient. I just happened to die, and Nai Nai just happened to call Fu Yuanzhou. Plus, before the police left, I overheard their private conversation. The park surveillance camera happened to be broken during the investigation. Colleagues from work said I often had "I want to die" on my lips. My boss said I'd been under a lot of pressure, lately juggling multiple projects. So they naturally concluded that I couldn't handle the stress of life, chose to end it, and told my child to call Fu Yuanzhou before doing so. Unfortunately, it was all wrong. Suyun laughed when she heard it. At work, who doesn't feel like dying? But every month they grumble and still show up for perfect attendance. And this surveillance camera, I don't even want to talk about it. It breaks down at the critical moments, completely useless. I nodded vigorously. How could anyone want to kill themselves? Nai Nai is only 5. I haven't yet watched her grow up. I can't bear to die. Nai Nai shook her head again, just like before. No, Mom said she'd take me to Disneyland for my birthday. As she said this, her eyes sparkled. Dad, are you coming with us? Fu Yuanzhou's eyes darkened again and again. His Adam's apple bobbed several times before he hoarsely uttered the words. Mom can't go with you. Nai Nai looked at me and said firmly, Mom can go. Fu Yuanzhou was silent for a moment before choosing his words carefully. Mom has gone to a very far place. From now on, you won't be able to see her, but... Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Nai Nai. I know, but Mommy is still here. She trotted over, excitedly looking up at me. Mommy, is the game over? Daddy knows Mommy is dead, and he almost found her just now. The living room fell into a dead silence. For a moment, I didn't know how to face this sudden change. Fu Yuanzhou was still half-crouching in place. When he slowly turned his head, his face was filled with utter stiffness and shock. At this point, I might as well be honest, he seems to treat the child well. Suyun gave me a nudge from the side. I snapped back to reality, took a deep breath, bent down, and smiled at Nai Nai. Yeah, the game is over. Tell Daddy about your superpower. Okay. Nai Nai's eyes crinkled as she turned to look at Fu Yuanzhou. Daddy, I can see Mommy. 13. Those words were far too shocking. Fu Yuanzhou slowly stood up, his gaze fixed intently in my direction.
He was silent for a long time.
I began to have Nai Nai relay the things that only Fu Yuanzhou and I knew, like that love letter, like the countless sleepless nights when he stubbornly asked over and over about Aunt Gu's last words, like how we were planning to get our marriage certificate before my dad's accident, like the extra 3 million that still appeared in the bank account after the breakup. With each thing I said, Fu Yuanzhou's expression grew more complicated. Finally, I said, I'm sorry, Gu Yuanzhou. I couldn't keep my promise. He must have believed in my existence. He slowly walked over and once again reached out his hand to touch very gently. So, it wasn't my imagination. You really are here. With a very hoarse voice, I finally saw Fu Yuanzhou crying over my death. I'm sorry, he said. How could this happen? If only I had known. Tears kept flowing. I'm so sorry for not being by your side for 6 years. I couldn't touch him or comfort him. Nai Nai looked anxiously from me to Fu Yuanzhou. Mommy, Daddy, don't cry. She reached out to grab my hand, but grasped at nothing. After a moment of shock, her eyes also grew moist, and she turned to look at Suyun. Auntie Suyun, would you please help me touch Mommy? Suyun let out a sigh, but said nothing. She simply put an arm around my shoulder and gave it a gentle pat. Nai Nai then turned to tug at Fu Yuanzhou's sleeve. Daddy, don't cry. Mommy is still here. Words so innocent yet cruel. Fu Yuanzhou buried his face in his hands, unable to speak. After a long silence, I decided to change the subject. Nai Nai, tell Daddy and Mommy that yesterday you met with a client named Zhang Qiao. Let Daddy tell the police officer that you suddenly remembered Mommy mentioning meeting a Mr. Zhang in the morning. Since we've come this far, I couldn't bear to let the murder get away with it. 14. Zhang Qiao is a major client of our company. I had been working on his deal for a long time without closing it. Then yesterday, he invited me to that Lakeview Park, saying the scenery would be perfect for discussing cooperation. But I didn't expect him to suddenly attack. You kept asking me out because you like me. Last dinner party, you poured me a drink. I thought it over for a long time. Yes, you have a kid, but you're still decent looking. Just one rule. Don't make a scene in front of my wife. My mouth opened and closed. I forced a smile as best I could. You must have misunderstood. I'm this warm to all my clients. He didn't buy it at all. We were right in the middle of the lake on a pleasure boat. Without warning, he pressed himself against me. Stop acting so holy. You just want me to sleep with you, so I'll sign the deal. I pushed him away hard. But to be safe, I didn't provoke him further. If that's how it is, forget the partnership. Still, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. He slapped me, and I stumbled, hitting the railing. In the scuffle, I fell into the water. I knew how to swim, but he pinned me down and held my head under, trying to avoid a big scene. And so I never came back up. The park was nearly empty on a weekday, and the lake was so vast. No one knew there was one less person on that boat. After I died, my soul left my body and immediately went to find Nai. I told her to have the kindergarten teacher take her home and taught her to call Fu Yuanzhou. I thought the cause of my death would be quickly investigated. I just didn't expect Zhang Qiao to have so much power. He could destroy the surveillance footage and have the company delete my attendance records. He could whitewash everything and continue living his happy life. This is completely unfair. 15. I didn't tell Fu Yuanzhou the detailed sequence of events. These weren't suitable for Nai to relay. Besides, if we investigate along the way, the truth would eventually come to light. Fu Yuanzhou also tacitly didn't press for details. He just looked at me in silence, his eyes turbulent yet restrained. Veins bulged from his neck all the way to the back of his hands. Finally, he suddenly unclenched his fists. He turned and went to the room to call the police. When he came out again, Fu Yuanzhou gripped his phone tightly and looked in the direction where I had been. Pan Yu, when I come back, will you still be here? Mom and Dad are right here. Nana sat on the sofa and pointed to where I was. Fu Yuanzhou was stunned for a moment and turned to look over. The redness in his eyes looked as if it had been burned by a fierce fire. I need to go over there. Can you wait for me? I was silent for a moment, then had Nana give him a positive reply. Only then did Fu Yuanzhou feel relieved and leave. Su Yun leaned close to me and whispered, I wasn't wrong, was I? Your man is quite devoted. I shook my head. I told you, he's not my man. Come on. She stretched lazily. I think you both can't let go of your old feelings. I also checked those women for you. They were all arranged by his father. Tell me the truth. She suddenly turned to look into my eyes. Do you want to see him? I was momentarily stunned and didn't answer. Su-Yun smiled knowingly. My family has guarded tombs for generations, so we know a few unconventional methods. If you want, I can call my old man over to help. Why are you helping me? I asked. She paused, her expression unusually calm and serious. I once asked the old man why he spent all day guarding these graves. He said it gave the living a place to hold on to and let the dead have somewhere to land when they came back. Back then, I didn't understand at all. She opened her mouth and let out a long sigh. It wasn't until I died myself that I realized those things were truly necessary. When life and death separate you, never to meet again, you have to use carriers to hold your longing. So, she turned her head to look at me again, smiling faintly. When you can still meet, make the most of the time to see each other. 16. Fu Yuanzhou was gone a bit longer this time. He didn't rush back until the rainy night of the third day. His black trench coat was wrinkled, carrying a layer of cold dampness. He came straight to Nai's room. Daddy! Nai happily pounced on him. Then she pointed at his chin strangely. So many little grasses. She turned her big eyes and studied him carefully. Why did Daddy get older? Fu Yuanzhou indeed looked much more weathered. His face was much thinner than a few days ago, his hair disheveled, and a fresh stubble had grown along his jawline. Where's Mom? He asked hurriedly. Nana, the talisman paper, I reminded in a low voice. Nana seemed to suddenly realize. Oh, she said, and quickly ran to the bedside table, pulling out the talisman paper from the drawer. Then she stuck one on her forehead and one on Fu Yuanzhou's forehead. This was the method Su Yun's father taught us, and then he left with Su Yun. Fu Yuanzhou was stunned for a moment. How? He abruptly stopped mid-sentence. His gaze fixed in my direction. The talisman paper on his forehead gradually disappeared, and he should be able to see me clearly now. Xiaoyu, his voice trembled. After 6 years, we finally meet again. Fu Yuanzhou strode over and pulled me into his embrace, even if all he could hold was air. It's me, I replied softly, matching his movements. He cried even more intensely than last time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through all this. Sorry you were alone in the water for so long. It seemed he already knew the whole story. Xiaoyu, do you hate me? He bowed his head in repentance, tears streaming down his face.
How could I hate you?
I smiled and gently reached out to lift his face. All I can think of is the good you've done. As I fell into the water, many people and memories flashed through my mind. First, I thought of Nai Nai. I thought of how she came out of me and grew to 5 years old. I thought of how she would get through the rest of her life without me. Then my dad, who raised me healthy and safe. He passed away when Nai Nai was 2, but after death, he stayed with us for a long time, always making Nai Nai laugh. Then I thought of Anku, always gentle. She taught me about womanhood and listened to my teenage secrets. She was like a mother to me, guiding my growth. Too bad I couldn't keep my promise to her. Finally, Fu Yuanzhou. From age 5 to at 24, he had occupied almost my entire life. Can't get over it, can't forget. At the final moment of life, I thought I should have met him long ago. 17, Fu Yuanzhou and I went to his room. Some things weren't convenient to say in front of Nai Nai. I floated over to his bedside table and pointed at the drawer. Using a deliberately proud tone, Fu Yuanzhou, how can you hate me while still not being able to forget me? Fu Yuanzhou was stunned for a moment, then smiled. He came over, pulled open the drawer, and took out the sketchbook he had brought from my house. Opening it page by page, as if it were a treasure, he said, I never hated you. I was a bit taken aback. That was unexpected. I thought he would at least resent me. It's actually easy to figure out. The Pan Yu I knew would never cheat. He took a light breath, eyes lowered. What hurt me back then was that you chose to give up, chose to trade with him, and abandon me. So that was it. That did sound pretty harsh. I moved closer, pretending to tug at his sleeve, and said softly, I'm sorry, Fu Yuanzhou, but since I'm already dead, just forgive me. Please, please. Fu Yuanzhou couldn't help but laugh. Then he shook his head. You didn't wrong me. That was the choice you had to make at the time. I was too young and didn't consider your situation. I dragged you into an adventure that should have been mine alone. Every word he spoke was sincere and earnest. It made it hard for me to keep joking around. But I still failed Anku's entrustment. Embarrassed, I looked out the window at the endless, drizzling rain. For the past 6 years, I wasn't by your side. Now, there's no way to make up for it. The air fell silent for a moment. Only the patter of rain could be heard. After a long moment, Fu Yuanzhou finally spoke. I, too, was restrained by Fu Cheng and never went to find you. He leaned in with a gentle smile, his eyes like a crescent moon, clear and bright. Let's call it even, shall we? I was moved by that moonlit gaze. I nodded slowly and firmly. Okay. Outside the window, the rain gradually stopped. 18 My case was quickly settled. Zhang Qiao was found guilty of other major crimes and was ultimately sentenced to immediate execution. Fu Yuanzhou played a significant role in this, but he never discussed case-related matters in front of me. So I would often sneak into the study to eavesdrop. Once, I accidentally overheard something about Fu Cheng. Send him directly to a nursing home. Tell him the act is over, and I won't see him. Fu Yuanzhou's voice was freezing cold. I didn't catch what the other person said on the phone. He just chuckled lightly. Fine, let him sue me. I'd like to see what he has to sue me with. I thought to myself that Fu Yuanzhou had ultimately completed his revenge in his own way. He hung up the phone and suddenly looked up, catching my eyes. After a brief moment of surprise, he softened his tone and took the initiative to explain. I transferred all the group's assets to an overseas company, and Fu Cheng had a stroke from the shock. I nodded and brought up a completely unrelated topic. The day after tomorrow is Nai Nai's birthday. Let's take her to Disneyland. After that, I would also have to leave. Before Su Yun left, she said that dead people generally can't stay in the mortal world for more than day 7. Nana's birthday was exactly on the 7th day. Day 19. Nana was very happy on the day we went to Disneyland. She was wearing the blue cake skirt I bought her, pulling Fu Yuanzhou to play this and that. From time to time, she would turn her head to look at me. Mommy, keep up, keep up. I floated behind them, watching their backs. I felt so happy. I had grasped this happiness. Fu Yuanzhou would occasionally turn his head to look at me. Our eyes met, but neither of us said a word. In the evening, after watching the fireworks, Nana was so tired she fell asleep leaning on Fu Yuanzhou's shoulder. After returning to the villa, Fu Yuanzhou laid Nana on the bed and covered her with the blanket. I kissed Nana's forehead one last time, even though she couldn't feel it. Fu Yuanzhou went to the terrace again, leaning on the railing, his eyes lowered toward the crabapple tree in the yard. The difference was that this time he didn't smoke. I floated to his side and spoke softly. Fu Yuanzhou, don't smoke anymore from now on. He agreed very quickly. Okay, no more crying. Nai will definitely look for me when she wakes up. Even though I've already given her a heads up, she's bound to cry. You comfort her well. Okay. Keep in mind the matter of her being able to see ghosts.
Okay.
Don't be too sad. Being able to meet again is already the best outcome.
His voice was hoarse and dry.
Okay. After a long silence, a wind rustled through the treetops, causing a soft swish-swoosh. Then I'm off, I said. My body gradually faded. This time, Fu Yuanzhou didn't say, okay. Nor did he turn his head. Only his shoulders trembled slightly. At the last moment before I dissipated, I heard Fu Yuanzhou's voice. Xiuyu, good night. Good night.